I'll never use them.
Waiting for Godot.
Well said. Yeah, I don't want to give anything away, but I sat through almost that whole play and he never showed up.
Are you serious? We're going to go see that tomorrow night. Forget
Really?
it. Sell the tickets on eBay. Here we go. Hang on a second.
rolling, Scotty?
I think I'm dripping from the nostril. Okay. You would think, as often as I have to wipe my nose, that I have a Coke habit. Okay.
All right, this will be 0927 16 Backstage in 3, 2, 1. Yeah, you were saying we were waiting for Godot there for a little while, and we had an interesting directing class when I was at the University of Florida, and it was cool because everybody in the class had Waiting for Godot. Everybody had the same play, and we had to figure out how we were going to do it. And one guy built this incredible mobile, which was like all of the dreams and visions in the guy's heads, like the whole thing was a dream. But I set it on the moon. They had this huge glass wall, like a stained glass picture, but it was high. It was like 15, well, not high, that high, 10, 11, 12 feet off the ground. And I had the two guys up there, and then I had a ladder, and then I just put a cushion down on the ground. And before the show started, I covered that thing with just tons of chalk dust. So when these guys finally stepped down, there's like this poof of dust, and it was epic. Because they're waiting for Commander Buck Godot in the orbiting rescue module to come and get them. And
well, see, I think if you do it on the moon, just for comedy value, you almost have to have Godot show up at the end because the moon is like completely uninhabited. There couldn't possibly be anybody coming.
I remember when somebody started explaining to me that this was what French existentialism was the idea that all
That's
hopes
right.
are crushed. Nothing is real. Nothing lasts. Everything's kind of a drudgerous sort of a march to inevitable death of disease or something. And it's like, no wonder these people aren't like
the French existentialists.
Well, that and the
French
lack of
existentialist
showers.
writers were those who picked up a pen instead of a derringer.
I sit there in a cafe all day and, oh, mon Dieu.
Zut alors.
Yeah, whatever.
Well,
Yeah, have another cigarette, need some snails, you bastard. We're going to go out and get the girl.
I'm writing a French play, and it's called Absinthe and Suicide. It's gonna
Love
be
it.
a hit.
Love it. All yours,
Well,
Mr.
here
Allen.
we are in this political season, desperately trying to come up with ideas that don't involve. There's just really two people on Earth that I don't want to talk about. There's only two. And it just seems to be.
But enough about
That's
Bill
right.
and Scott.
Yes, that's
It
right.
just seems to be. Do you ever get that feeling? I don't know about you guys, but there's this sort of heaviness that weighs upon me when I read the news in the morning now. It's just like, oh, my Lord, is there nothing else going on in the world? It's like, it's these two people and somebody popping off shots at a mall somewhere. I mean, that's pretty much where it is.
What I wouldn't give for enough pharmaceutical grade MDA to get me through the next 6 weeks.
Oh, my goodness, is it 6 weeks still? Holy
Something like
cow.
that. 7 weeks, 8 weeks. I don't know. No, it can't be 8 weeks. It's got to be like 6, 7 weeks.
4 years ago and 8 years ago, I was vibrating with anxiety. I just couldn't watch the debates. I just couldn't bear it. The stakes were so high. And somehow this year, I just feel different. It's like, needless to say, I want the Republican to win, but I don't. I guess it's after 8 years of ruin, failure, and disaster. It's almost like what I know is just like what I know how to do is.
Well, and
is
actually,
talking about this stuff.
I got a contact today from somebody as we record this on Monday, the day before the debate. I got a contact from Michael Coolidge, who hosts a radio show in Chicagoland, and asking me if I'd like to be on tomorrow on the show to talk about the debate. And I said, I suppose this would require me to actually watch the debate. And he said, yeah, that is kind of a prerequisite. But I do get, there is kind of a calmness nervousness that has come over me about the debate itself. I mean, I feel like one of those guys sort of rosining their bow on the deck of the Titanic and getting ready to play Nearer My God to Thee, because, nobody's going to criticize your performance. It's over. This is how it's going to be.
Turns out the last song played on the Titanic was actually sung.
Oh, really? Was that it?
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't even warm up with Nearer My God to Thee?
They probably just tuned it up, They probably did like an electric version, kind of just kind of a backstage jam, like.
Well, it's a lot better than what actually happened. That's what people said they played, but they're actually doing a bunch of polka numbers.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
So the way we usually do this show is we have a pre-production meeting that happens on Monday, and then we record our shows on Tuesday, and you get to see them during the rest of the week, and you call them Right Angle. But this show is for members only, and they get to see the unvarnished, behind-the-scenes, poorly made up and badly lit version of the show, where
That's
right, where we talk about what we may talk about this week. And Steve has the misfortune this week of having the members-only episode, which is probably breaking news to him at the moment. And so we're gonna we're gonna let Steve go first and tell us what he has dreamed up for us.
Well, I think for regular, we've got to do debate wrap. Whether or not you watch the thing, Scott, you're going to read enough on Twitter, on Facebook,
absolutely,
in the morning news. You'll
I am actually going to do the Sugar Hill Gang version of debate wrap.
Sweet. I can't wait to see that. Masters of... No, Epic Battle...
That's
rap,
right.
What's it called?
Epic Rap Battles of History.
That's it. Great show. Their Hayek versus Keynes is just still one of the best things I've ever seen on the internet. That wasn't, done by one of the three of us.
So Steve, because we're gonna come to people later than the normal, sort of all the talking points will have already been vomited out by the mainstream media sources. Yeah. So do we have any way of approaching this that will, induce people to say, hey, I want to tune in and see that, other than our compelling personalities?
I have our compelling personalities.
Well, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, me too.
No, I don't. In fact, this debate it's just, okay, it's the first time in decades, and I'm not exaggerating here, the first time in decades I've been going in to the GOP side of the debate without just kind of automatically flinching or recoiling, trying to figure out what's going to happen. Because I think Trump will take on Lester Holt when he needs to, and that's such a welcome change after all these debate milquetoast guys like Romney or McCain or Bush, who whenever you listen to him speak, you're just, oh God, no, please don't mess it up. And then, of course, he would mess it up. So, yeah, I'm not going into this one being all flinchy, and what I'm really curious to see is the ammo that Hillary brings, because, she's so well rehearsed. She is, I'm speaking honestly here. I got to give her credit where it's due. She's a great study. She's well practiced. She's well rehearsed. Can she stick to her points while Trump does his Trump thing? The only people she debated with during the primary season this year were Bernie Sanders, who pulled all his punches, and two other guys who are so milquetoast that I couldn't tell you who they are right now without pulling them up on Google. And Trump had to hone his debate skills up against 16 other GOP contenders, most of whom were in there to try and really win it, unlike Bernie Sanders. So I'm excited. I want to see this play out, and so I have no idea what angle to take on this tomorrow, because we have no idea what's going to happen.
I think you're right in saying that she's going to come in very well prepared. Obviously, again, we're recording this before we've actually seen it. But I have a feeling it's going to be one of those things where she's going through the 5 points of her foreign policy in the Middle East, and Donald Trump will go, excuse me, is that a wart? It'll they'll just be completely unexpected.
It promises to be fun. And so, yeah, if you ask me what my angle is, I'm going in tonight with no preconceived notions, except instead of my traditional either scotch or martini for this debate, I'm working on a little something, a new cocktail called the Get Through It, that's made from high-proof rum, Red Bull, and ecstasy.
So remember, ladies and gentlemen, that Steve's questions on what happened as the night gets later and later are going to seem a little more fluid. And if he starts talking about, so what about the part where that panda bear came on? That was amazing. I think just going into it, I think you've got the two most negative candidates in history.
Yeah.
And so there's almost nothing that they can do to drive their numbers down. If Donald Trump makes a smart alecky remark, then that's not going to hurt him among the Donald Trump supporters. Likewise, if Hillary seems snappy or so on. So I think the clever thing is going to be who can bring the most class to this debate. I really do, and I think Donald Trump is much more able to do that. I just don't think Hillary has it in her.
And if
really
Trump does bring the class, it'll bring an element of surprise along with it.
And then there'll finally be something positive on the board. And if Trump can reduce his negatives, it's all his. I also am going to be looking for signs of media bias. For example, if it turns out tomorrow night or tomorrow afternoon when we do the show, if Hillary was starting to waver at the podium and then way off on stage right, a Secret Service agent started shooting into the ceiling for no reason, then I would say that, maybe this might have, and the cameras pan over there. It's like, what's going on? Bam, 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 bam. And then Hillary's just not there. She disappears. Like Crispin Glover on the
because I'm
Amish
show. And I don't watch, or practically Amish anyway, and I don't watch network news. I really have very little exposure to Lester Holt. I've seen his face, and I think I once saw him do a Facebook Live broadcast where he was eating lunch out on the square and inviting people to watch him eat lunch. But other than that, I think that if I were Lester Holt in that position, my question to the producers and to the debate host would be, do I actually have to sit on the stage with the two most unpopular people in the country? Like, is there any way we can do this with me in another room just remotely sending in the questions?
Hey, guys, I've got a question of you before we get too much on the debate. For members this week, I so wanted to not do anything political, and I'm reading through the headlines. I'm going through my notes. I was checking out Instapundit and Drudge, and I got nothing. So if somebody wants to offer a member's topic to me, I'll grasp at most any straw at this point.
Well done, Steve. Well done, handing that off to the audience and allowing audience-generated content to take the
That's
day.
right. For those of you who have
That's
ideas
awesome.
about what Steve should use for the members-only show, please send them to pathetichost@billwhittle.com.
That goes straight to my inbox, by the way.
No, seriously, anything a member puts in the comments section on this particular thing will be fair game for Steve to pick
And he
tomorrow.
does read them.
Love it.
What else does he have to do?
I do.
So
That's it, I think.
I think
So
yeah, I think that's
that
it.
so that covers Stephen and Bill Whittle. You've had an exciting couple of weeks getting ready for this first debate. I'm assuming you're going to do something related to politics. Please surprise me.
Well, I am going to do something related to politics and entertainment.
Hey.
Everybody always asks me, you're so conservative, how can you stand to live in Hollywood? And I say, well, if you're a volcanologist, you have to live under the volcano, right? I mean, you gotta be close enough to study it. So imagine my surprise when a week or two ago, director Joss Whedon puts out a video with I have to say I was really heartbroken to see Robert Downey Jr. leading the charge on that, but that's the way it goes. And
the whole
what's his
freaking
name?
Avengers team
Mark
practically
Ruffalo?
was on that thing. Yeah.
Pretty much. Coming out to say that we have to stop Donald Trump, and he doesn't mention him by name, but he it's clearly Trump, and it's clearly a get out the vote for Hillary Clinton thing. See, your favorite stars are here, and they're telling you what they would vote for and who they would vote for, and therefore, why don't you go out and vote exactly the same way as these Hollywood numbskulls? And there's so much wrong with this, but the thing I'm going to concentrate on, I think, is this. I think you can make a very compelling case, and I plan to tomorrow, make a very compelling case that virtually all of the support for Donald Trump comes right down to we are sick and tired of being told what to do and what to think by you liberal elite idiot D-bags. We have had enough. And every time a video like this comes out, Trump's numbers go up, and my willingness to vote for him goes from cautiousness to enthusiasm, just to show these swine, that you are not political analysts and you don't have anything to say. You're just famous people with very small ideas and live in a little bubble of political conformity. And I'm tempted to vote for anybody just so that they can, just because I want to see their faces.
Bill, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and
in fairness, they're not telling us who to vote for. They're trying to bribe us to vote for Hillary Clinton by promising something that many people would find exciting in the stead of Hillary Clinton, who nobody finds exciting. It was the
What's the
promise
bribe?
that Mark Ruffalo will appear nude in his next movie. That's at the end of the.
Yeah.
Then if Mark
He always
Ruffalo
wakes
appears
up
nude,
naked as the Hulk.
if he appears as naked in the next movie in order to get people to vote for Hillary, then it is going to be a Trump landslide. It's going to be
That's
a
right.
50-state landslide.
Yeah, and coming from Joss Whedon, it's always a disappointment. I know I shouldn't be disappointed after all these years, but he writes such great liberty-themed stories with liberty-loving characters. You go to Mal Reynolds. You look at you watch the two Avengers flicks that he wrote and directed. Even going back to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, he's got these great themes about the strength and courage of the individual and building a team. Non-coercively, organically, naturally, from the ground up. All of these great themes, and when push comes to shove, is always vote for the
It's
Democrat.
what David Mamet said in his great Village Voice piece years ago, Why I Am No Longer a Brain Dead Liberal, and then he said it in a fuller, fleshed out version in his
the
book,
yeah.
which is basically, he said he came to the realization suddenly that these ideas that he was mouthing and these principles that he was putting into the characters that he was writing about weren't actually how he lived his own life. And at some point he came to the realization, it's like, wait a minute, this isn't what I really believe. But, Joss Whedon has some pull, so he's got Robert Downey Jr., he's got Scarlett Johansson, he's got Mark Ruffalo. I don't think I saw Captain America in there, but I think I did see Nathan Fillion, which was quite a disappointment for me as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about Nathan, but anyway, in any event, my friend Jeremy Boring talks about this. He says that Joss Whedon writes like a conservative because he is a conservative. He's just so surrounded by liberals that when you're writing something, that is the essence of you coming out. I mean, you almost go into this kind of trance-like stage, and your truest feelings come out on paper. And everything he writes about is conservative. You can't make that stuff up. He's fundamentally a conservative. He is Mal. That's his persona that he'd like to be. But he's so surrounded by these gigantic liberals that he has this kind of dual life sort of thing where the worlds that he creates extremely conservative and the world he lives in is extremely liberal. And I actually almost think on reflection now that he does something like this just to keep his liberal cred together because so many of the films he make are relatively conservative.
Yeah, and he finally had his billion-dollar blockbuster, which I've been cheering for since about season 2 of Buffy, when it was Joss Whedon who showed me just how good television can really be, with the whole Angel re-losing his soul arc in that season 2. And I'm just rooting for him. I thought, gosh, I hope Firefly works. Firefly was a bust. Gosh, I hope Serenity works, and Serenity was a bust. And then he finally got his blockbuster with the Avengers, and it was so good. It was so true to all those themes he was working his career on. He's just not true to it.
Well, and I guess the comforting thing for us should be that no matter what these Hollywood folks mouth when they try to stand up on their hind legs and make political statements, in reality, they know that the way to make money is to have a sort of a bold, manly hero who goes it alone, who uses a gun, who gets the girl, who drives a fast car, who goes into a rocket ship or whatever. Like, ultimately, the movies that sell are the ones where people stand up and cheer for America and cheer for free ideas of freedom,
Correct. All of them are in movies that are the antithesis of Hillary Clinton's campaign. They have guns, they have fast cars, they're not concerned about global warming. They love America, they have superpowers.
Don't forget the hot chicks.
Yeah. So that's what I'm going to do.
That should
it
be
on.
entertaining.
Great.
I want to go
Looking forward
kind of
to
at a
it.
broader level with my episode tomorrow, and I hope this comes out right. And I know people are going to jump down my throat either way I say this, but let's just posit that no matter what happens on November 11th, by the way, I'm telling everybody Election Day is November 11th. Turn out on November 11th. Make sure to vote.
I love that Republicans vote on Tuesday and Democrats vote on Wednesday. That's a wonderful.
We're doing our best to drive
That's
down
right.
voter turnout to historic lows, and we've got Hillary and Donald backing us up.
So
on that.
let's just say whatever happens on that day, for all intents and purposes, what we have come to know as the conservative movement over the last several decades seems to at least be on the wane, perhaps dead or comatose, or something like it. And I don't mean that there's nobody out there who still treasures and holds conservative values. It just means that there's sort of no bold public voice for that anymore. Even if Donald Trump gets elected, the Republicans will be celebrating and all that kind of stuff. But it will be almost in spite of conservatives that he was able to get elected. If Hillary Clinton gets elected, certainly in spite of. But I don't want to sort of do a in advance autopsy on this election. What I would like to talk about is the future of what I will, for shorthand purposes, call the conservative movement, and what we need to do going forward. Because as I think about it over the years, I mean, before Goldwater, there were the guys at the National Review who were essentially conspiring behind the scenes to help to develop this movement. And it was ascendant in Goldwater, and then sort of snuffed out briefly, and then it rose again and became triumphant in Reagan. But there really hasn't been an advocate for it that people can get behind, or frankly, any organization that people could get behind. Forget about charismatic characters. There's been no solid conservative movement. And what I'm afraid of is the election of either Clinton or Trump will basically say, you see, you guys were just as lousy a bunch of utopians as those progressives are, because your ideas are just air castles and they can never actually happen.
Well, if Trump loses, I think the best thing for traditional conservatism would be a Trump loss, because then you could really argue what I've been arguing, which is the only time we've really run straight conservatism was Ronald Reagan, and we won 45 states and then 49 states. The last time we tried, maybe the only time we tried running what we consider to be conservatism. If Donald Trump wins, and especially if he wins big, that's going to be a definite, validation of the alt-right and this kind of hybrid philosophy that I, much like libertarianism, can't seem to understand. And the reason I don't understand it is because every time I talk about it, I get just flamed by people who say, you don't understand anything about it. It's like, okay, well, no two of your definitions are the same. I mean, most conservatives can talk about conservatism and have come to the same basic, tenets. But yeah, this is a bizarre year. And
it's, for those of us, and we hinted at this before we
we
came on, and if you want to weigh in on us, we're not going to do a show about this topic, but today I was listening to the radio. I heard Glenn Beck get Ted Cruz on the phone and try to have him explain why his principled speech at the convention where he said vote your conscience, and his previous comments where he said Trump is a pathological liar and his attacks on my family and he's not a constitutionalist and all this kind of stuff. Now Ted Cruz is saying I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. He's endorsing Donald Trump. So he's on there trying to explain it. And for anybody who thought that Ted Cruz was the guy who was going to carry the conservative movement, I think you've probably been disabused of that notion as well. And so I just kind of want to explore, what does it look like going forward? Do ideas and presentation have to change? Do we have to think differently about who and how we advance these ideas? Do we have to relabel it? And where does it begin?
Guns and ammo in the basement.
Well, I said 4 days after the loss in 2012 that the next president's going to come from the pop culture.
Yep.
And if Trump wins, then that'll be a whole new world for us to look at. If Trump loses, I think the lesson will be you can't win nationally if half of the Republicans don't come out for you. So that's just that. But I think the answer will also be for future candidates that Donald Trump was the only person on either podium, on either side in the debates. He was the only person in this entire election cycle who understood the power of television, understood the power of charisma on television, and understood the power of kind of trolling the press into keeping the spotlight on him all the time. I personally think he's going to really shine tomorrow. Again, we record this the day before the debates. I suspect he's going to shine because he has spent most of his life in the public spotlight. And I don't mean like Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State. I mean on camera. He's a showman. That's what he is. He's a showman.
Spent decades trying to appear like a piece of cardboard in front of the camera. I mean, she's
just trying to...
So programmed. I had a thought earlier this morning when I was writing up something for Instapundit, and I didn't carry it to its conclusion, but it just kind of randomly popped into my head when reading something or other. But so much of what we know and are able to do is regulated by two kinds of people, exactly two kinds of people: lawyers and stand-up comedians. Lawyers run the politics, and stand-up comedians bubble up from the comedy circuit to get their own sitcoms, to get their late-night shows, to SNL, and they really drive the popular culture in that way. And so between lawyers and comedians, we almost don't have a third choice. And look who's running. We've got a lawyer, and in a lot of senses,
hey, Bill,
a comedian.
Did you notice how Steve just said, well, I was writing something for Instapundit? I was writing something for Instapundit.
Yes, I did notice.
It's fun.
And after this is finished, I'll be writing something for the National Enquirer.
That's because I hardly have time to write for Vodka Planet anymore. This is going to be a nice break doing the drunk blogging tonight.
So before we sign off, I'm going to be doing... later on, I'm going to be doing a quick firewall on Charlotte, and then I'm going to do one on Hillary's health. So just before we go, since this is before the debate, I was wondering if all three of us might want to take just a guess at what do you think the chances are that Hillary will exhibit some kind of symptom, something. She'll exhibit some kind of noticeable symptom of the things that people are talking about, either coughing or the weird eye movements or a little unsteadiness on the feet, whatever. What do you think the chances of that happening during the debate are? By the way, one symptom that I really do think is a symptom would be if she's so wooden and so slow that she's completely just totally doped up.
I think that...
Now, she'll be on so many amphetamines, vitamin B boosters, whatever it is that her Dr. Feelgood keeps in that EpiPen. Every commercial break, he's going to be sneaking up behind the podium and jabbing her in the ass again. She'll be fine.
Well, if that happens, Steve, I don't think Donald Trump's going to let that pass unnoticed.
No.
I think her main goal is to come across as if you were looking at one of those great charts of the taxonomic key, that she would wind up in the hominid zone of that. And afterward, the commentators in the spin room will be going, hey, did y'all notice, talking to the journalist, did you notice that she exhibited bilateral symmetry and a central nervous system?
Did you? And how lifelike she appeared? Amazingly lifelike. Yeah, I think it's going to be, look, I just as a final cap on this, because it is exciting to know, tonight, I think this could be it certainly could be a game changer. Maybe it likely won't be. But I do think that that she is more at risk than he is. I really do. I think that she's more at risk than he is for two reasons. Three. First of all, if she says something, she's not going to come across as warm because she can't. She cannot do it. We've seen her when she tried to do the hi. No, she can't do it. So number one, I think Trump's going to win on the warmth or the humanity aspect of it. Secondly, I'm really concerned about health symptoms on her part. And third, she's just... Oh, where am I going with this? I'm not going anywhere.
Well, the third thing, I don't think this was your third thing, but it would be mine because I think you nailed the first two. The third thing is she's got to change the direction. A whole slew of polls out this weekend are showing it dead even after a pretty fast erosion of Hillary being up 7-8 points. Then it was 6, then it was 2. Now it's dead even. She has got to change the direction of this thing, which means she's got to take a chance, and that's not really her strong suit.
I was going to say the day after stories. If the day after stories do not go like this, on one side you'll see Hillary Clinton put Donald Trump away. She showed herself as being presidential. Yep. And then on the other side you'll see stories say Donald Trump completely embarrassed Hillary Clinton. She is unfair. If you don't see two sets of stories like that, but instead see some people on the left going, oh my goodness, I can't wait for the next debate because Hillary's in trouble, or vice versa.
Yeah.
Then that could shake the race up. But fully expect that the day after coverage is going to be rah, rah, rah from each corner.
A tie, but a tie goes to the candidate that currently has momentum. That's just a rule of thumb in politics.
Momentum is an amazing thing. I had one of the most unpleasant weekends of my life, maybe the most unpleasant weekend in a long time, when I was in back in the 90s, Florida was playing Florida State up by 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Florida State scored 28 unanswered points to make it a tie. And this last weekend, the Gators were up 21-3 at halftime. And then Florida State scored 5 unanswered touchdowns or something like that. Because what happens is that when you're ahead and you try to protect your lead, you play very conservatively. You play very small football, up the middle, safe football, protect the lead. Well, that's not really football. And the other guys, once they get a little electricity behind them, they open everything up. They're completely loose. They got nothing to lose. And the Gators in this particular case were just up the middle for 7 series. And only at the end they opened it up and then they scored. So I think that the big danger for Hillary is playing prevent defense, is trying to run out the clock and hold on to the lead, because the momentum is not in her favor.
Yeah, you can't run out the clock when you're not holding the ball. I used to be a real serious war gamer. Talking about the ones with the fold-out maps and all the little cardboard NATO counters.
The hexes.
Yes, all your hex board games. And there was a really well-done one that I picked up in probably 91 or 92. It was called Korea 95, and it was the Second Korean War. But what was so interesting about it is it wasn't really so much a study of what a Second Korean War might be like, but how you might game out initiative, because initiative in warfare is so vital. It's so important. It's being able to act and react and act again faster than your enemy can. And it's the same thing as momentum. It's the same effect as momentum in politics. And the way the authors of this game modeled initiative was North Korea started with initiative with a surprise attack, and the U.S. South Koreans could get the initiative back North Korea could lose initiative. By not gathering enough victory points fast enough, and the Allied forces could gain the initiative by taking a bunch of victory points fast enough. And what happened when you got initiative is you were essentially awarded 2 turns in a row. So instead of I take my turn, you take your turn, it's I take my turn, now I take your turn, and then you get to go. And it was a fabulous way of modeling how important that is, because the victory points were essentially psychological. You've got to take this key thing to damage the other side's psyche, and then you get inside their decision loop and it's all over.
It says a lot about this country when you realize that during the presidential debates, both candidates' best chance to win is to not say a single word. That's
Trump's been in hiding practically for 2 weeks now, and his poll numbers
done him a lot of good.
And if I had to predict, I would say that Trump is going to win in the minds of Trump supporters. It's going to be by a knockout. But I would say that an objective person like myself will say at the morning after that Trump won on points. But I will say this: I think Trump can win every one of the 3 debates decisively and still lose the election. I am not one of these people who believes that these debates are decisive and people are going to watch them and go, oh my goodness, I'm changing my allegiance. I don't think that's going to happen.
Well,
and I would think that Clinton could still win the election if her organization is doing the groundwork that Trump has been historically, reluctant to do.
That's the great unknown.
I've heard the groundwork argument, man, and then I look at pictures and I see Donald Trump turning out 60,000 people and Hillary Clinton turning out 200. That's the unreported story of the year as far as I'm concerned. My dream debate tonight would be for Hillary to start coughing, have Donald Trump walk over with a glass of water, offer it to her, put his hand gently on her back and say, we can delay this, we can do this again if you'd like. We can reschedule this for another
Trump
day.
Crowded her personal space like Lazio did. And
Fine, but
the comfy pillow debate.
Then it's you versus your own lying eyes. Some magnanimous move like that.
I think if he's going to walk,
would be the game.
Well, he can't approach her though. Do you remember the
Rick Lazio
her debate for the New York Senate? Yeah, he invaded her personal space to sign some pledge or whatever it was. And it came off as extremely off-putting, even for somebody like me who didn't want Hillary Clinton to do well at anything.
You can't do that tentatively. I think if Trump walks over to her, he's got to do the full Heimlich maneuver.
And out will pop the little green demon, that
little
controls
frog will come out of
that controls the Autobot. Yeah, my God, we're in such
she'll
trouble.
switch off her emotion chip.
Oh my! And you people are paying for this, and don't think we're not grateful.
35 minutes worth,
$9.95 a month.
We apologize
at BillWhittle.com. It's really, I think sometimes what we do here is real serious messaging to advance the conservative, libertarian / constitutionalist cause, just the cause of freedom. But sometimes, frankly, I think we need and you need to just be able to laugh a little bit. And so we're glad to be part of that as well. And we're trying not to tear up as we're laughing.
Let's just end this goat rodeo. I'm praying for the sweet meteor of death. I still do. I still hold out hope.
Smod me, baby.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thanks,
It's going to be an
folks.
interesting night.
Bye.